I thought, I will emphasize on this diversity in the tradition. One mark of Indian tradition is its diversity. There are different voices. Okay, and today what I thought was I'll share with you some thoughts, some reflections on the great man, Poonthanam, the great poet, and particularly focusing on his work, Jnanapana, not other works. He has several works attributed to him, but I'll be take up certain sections of Jnanapana. And what interests me is I'm a student of philosophy. I teach philosophy in IIT Madras, so I still continue to be a student of philosophy, and I try to see it from the prism of philosophical reflections. So the title of the book, Jnanapana, Pana is it's a literally style poem, something which is song, or you can even understand it as something that needs to be consumed. Jnana is knowledge, all of you know. And the one interesting aspect of this work is that though the title of the book is Jnanam, it's full of bhakti. Okay, because it basically about Krishna, and it's about bhakti. Usually we understand jnana, bhakti, karma as different paths. But again, there lies the secret. I think they are different paths to the same goal, to the same spiritual heights. Okay, and what is that spiritual goal? What is that spiritual experience? As I mentioned, there are diverse traditions in India. One of the greatest teachings of Buddha, the great Buddha, is silence. How to be silent. Okay. And I believe this is, again, a great wisdom from Indian tradition. There is a story I've heard a story about Ramana Maharshi, the great Ramana Maharshi. Once his disciples decided to organize a conference on his philosophy. So there were nearly about 300 delegates from different parts of the world. So all of them were planning to come down to celebrate his philosophy, his teachings. And they have printed a beautiful brochure and all that, sending it across different parts of the world. And once Ramana Maharshi just entered the room where the deliberations were going on, and he was just going through the brochure, and he found 300 names. He said, what is this? 300 people are coming. I'm very happy about it. And why do they come here? To talk about maunam, silence. So 300 people are assembling to talk about silence. So Maharshi was apparently telling us that, the ultimate thing that I intend to teach you is how to be silent, how to be perfectly silent. Because, what is the other side of silence? Talk, samsara. In Malayalam, we call it samsaram. Of course, samsaram has a different meaning. And walk, anything. Talk versus silence. We talk about what? We talk about the world. And as per Indian tradition, the world is trigunatmakam. Three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And Sankhya tradition, the Sankhyanis, Kapila, in his Sankhya Karika has explained the very fundamental nature of this world. He says that the world is fundamentally dynamic in nature. It's in constant flux. Okay. So the talk is about a changing world. Every talk is about a changing world. It's about change we talk. We are trying to articulate this, what happens in this world, our emotions, our passions, our experiences, our joys, our anxieties. Everything is about this change. If there is no change, there is no anxiety. There is no aspiration. There is nothing to desire if everything is static. But the world is not static. It changes. We know that, the fundamental character of this world is to change, constant flux. As the great master, Greek master Heraclitus said, one cannot step into the same river twice. Our great Buddha also said it. We cannot step into the same river twice, because by the time we step into the river, both we and the river would change. So everything is changing. So we keep on talking. And what is this talk about? The talk is about Prakriti, about uncertainty. Poonthanam talks about uncertainty in his Jnanapana. It almost begins with that, with the nature of the world. Innaleyolam endannariñila, ini naaleyum endannarivila. So we never knew what is going to happen till today, till yesterday. I mean, what has happened? It has happened, just happened. And what is going to happen in future? Future is also uncertain. And what is going to happen to people? We don't know. Everything is uncertain. So we are living in a world of uncertainty. And here he is going to talk about Jnanapana. Okay, so and again, Jnanapana, as I mentioned, is about Krishna. The term Krishna means to attract. Krishna is one who attracts. Krishna is the eternal symbol of a man who attracted everyone, all kinds of people to him. He has attracted the Gopikas. Thousands of Gopikas were attracted by Krishna, and they all had the experience of Rasa Leela, except Radha. Radha never had Rasa Leela because Radha never experienced Krishna as different from her. There was identity. For Radha, Krishna was not different from her. There was perfect identity. She never thought that, the Bhagavan is someone who is different from her. Different people would approach it, different people would experience it differently. Philosophers talk about what is the ultimate objective of philosophy across traditions. All philosophers would say that it's to know the truth. The Greeks, the Indians, the Arabs, the Chinese, every philosophical tradition deals with truth. And what is truth? Truth is something which we need to know. And the usual way in which we understand truth is by correspondence to reality. There are 20 people in this room, so we can count it. My statement is either true or false. That's one way to understand truth. Another way to understand truth is uncovering. The reality unravels to you. Unconcealment. Okay. And this is the way in which the Greek tradition understood truth. This is the way in which the Indian tradition understood truth. That's the reason why there is diverse uncovering. For different people, for different traditions, truth unravels differently. Okay, so Krishna is the truth, unravels differently to different people. To Gopikas, to Radha, to Arjuna. To Arjuna, at some point of time, Krishna was his Tora, his friend, his companion. Used to share lighter moments with his friend. They went around, played around. But at one moment in his life, at a very crucial moment in his life, Arjuna Vishada Yogam, Bhagavad Gita, beautifully explains it. What happens to Arjuna? Arjuna sees things about his own experience, like the Gantivam is falling off my hands. I am unable to bear its weight, and my body is trembling with, and my mouth is dried up. Okay, I'm sweating. So these are all experiences which normally all of us have when we are scared. So I would say that Arjuna was scared of seeing the mighty enemies, Drona, Bhishma, Karna, all these great warriors. So he doesn't know what to do. He lost his direction. So he needs a captain. So he turns to Krishna. So now Krishna reveals to Arjuna as a guru. And Bhagavad Gita itself has different strands. At some point of time, Krishna appears as a guru. At certain occasions, Krishna appears as a Lord, as a God. Okay, you surrender to me. This is what he says. Then you don't have to fear. So there are different ways in which the Guru or absolute reality unravels itself to us. This is the way in which Krishna needs to be understood in Jnanapana. Krishna can be understood as a principle that attracts the Jivatma to the Paramatma, to the truth. For a person who looks for Jnana Marga, in why Poonthanam talks about Jnana, this is the Jnana. I'll conclude probably with that kind of a knowledge, what knowledge he aims at articulating here later. But here we'll just begin with it. And for the Advaitins, for the traditional Advaitins, for the Vedantic Advaitin, they have a concept of Maya, the world. We are talking about the world. The world is something which the entire talk is about the world. So we have actually compared talk with silence. And I said, our aim is silence. And in between, we have to deal with the talk. The talk is about the world. And we have to also contemplate about the nature of the world. And Advaitic contemplation, Advaita says that world needs to be understood essentially as Maya. Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. And then it also says that Jivo Brahmai na Apara. So there is somewhere, the identity statement is also involved. Jiva and Brahma are na apara, not different from each other. So there is identity. So in the West, we have a philosopher called Hegel. He's an 18th century idealist, German idealist, a great thinker. So Hegel also talks about a reality which is absolute, which can be roughly translated as Egam, because Egam is a typical Indian concept. Okay, we have this whole celebrated Vedic saying that, Egam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. This is precisely what I meant by unraveling the absolute in different ways. Krishna was unraveled to the Gopikas, to Radha, to Arjuna, to Duryodhana, to different people differently. So, Egam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Unraveling. And Hegel also talks about this absolute. Absolute, there cannot be two absolutes. Or more than one. Even one is also not correct, because when you say that it is one, Egam is not one. Egam cannot be one, because when you say that one is something which is mathematical. It's a mathematical category. And all mathematical categories are mental categories. Creation of our mind, our concepts. Okay. And these concepts are something which we basically use to understand the world. I understand that there is a yellow color garland hanging. There are 4 garlands hanging over here. Yellow color. So color, yellow, 4, number, all these are concepts which my mind use in order to make sense of this world. So what is happening in this world? There are 20 people around here. They do many things. They are sitting, some of them are sitting, some of them are walking, some of them are listening. So we are engaged in various things here. To make sense of what is happening here, we use concepts. Okay. And when we try to understand the absolute by applying this concept, we fail. Because these concepts are basically our tools, our scales. And our scale is always, say, we can go with a scale of 30 centimeters or 60 centimeters. And when we try to measure the unlimited, the truly unlimited, we fail. So this is what happens when we try to understand with our mind the absolute reality, Krishna, or anything for that matter, Brahman for the Advaitins. When we try to understanding means, you're standing under your concepts. You're standing under the categories of the mind. These are, in philosophy, we call it the categories of the mind. Kant, another German philosopher, talks about 7 categories: space, time, then quality, quantity, modality, and relations. These are certain categories which the mind employs. Vaisheshika, the Vaisheshika thinkers in our own tradition, they talk about 7 categories: Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Vishesha, Samavaya, and Abhava. The 7 categories by means of which we understand the world. So I can basically, all of us do apply this, whether we know or not, whether we like it or not. We do employ these categories to make sense of what is happening around us. So all talk is about this world, which is the creation of our mind. Mano kalpidam, Maya. So this is Maya. The world which we have created by superimposing our limited categories to the unlimited absolute reality. So we are trying to understand that. How do we do this? That's the question. And here you have Poonthanam, a very ordinary person, a bhakta, a devotee of Guru Ayyappan. The world which we talk about has light and darkness in it. Absolute cannot have light and darkness, because light and darkness are apparently contradictions. And we are talking about the world where there is light and darkness, where is fire and water. Because the Panchabhutas, the 5 fundamental elements out of which the world is created: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Okay. These 5 elements, apparently some of them contradict with each other. Fire and water, for example, that's because we understand them as Panchabhutas with our mind by applying our categories. It's our limited categories when we try to understand the unlimited absolute reality. In summary, the talk is about the world, and we are talking about the world which is full of contradictions, conflicts. So we complain that there is no peace in this world. There is always conflicts in this world. It's bound to be there, because the world is bound to have concepts, because we can never see the world, we can never experience the world in its real nature. We always experience it with limited perspectives, and with limited perspectives we try to sort of package it in a certain sense, and my packaging will be different from your packaging, so there is bound to be conflicts. So conflicts are part of the very nature of our superimposition of categories on this world. What happens is, philosophically what happens is, every experience starts with the subject and the object. Jnada and Jnaya. And then you get Jnana. Since we started out with Jnana Pana, we have to talk about Jnada and Jnaya as well, the subject and object as well, before we really get into knowledge. And what is Jnada and Jnaya? What is subject and object in this process? It's necessary that in such a confusing world, the true subject and the true object are also bound to evade our attention. We'll never get to capture it. What is the true subject here? The Jivatma. In Advaitic term, in Vedantic terms, it is the Jivatma, and the object is the Paramatma. Object is the Paramatma. And Jnanam is the knowledge about ultimate reality, which is Brahma Jnana or Paramatma Jnana, whatever. And there are different names. We can have different names to that. So all these are going to be evading our attention because of these limitations. Now the question is how to gain this knowledge. We'll go step by step, how to gain this knowledge. And there are, of course, the tradition tells us that there are different paths to this highest knowledge. There is Jnana Marga, there is Bhakti Marga, there is Karma Marga. These are the 3 broad margas, but there are plenty of others. Even Natya, art is a means to liberation as far as Indian tradition is concerned, because Bharata Muni famously says that Natyam is the 5th Veda, Natyam Panchamam Veda. So Natya is the 5th Veda. So even through art, the practice of art, the appreciation of art, there are diverse ways, because we are dedicating to your work. You're dedicating to your practice, what you are engaged in. And there is a moment where you forget yourself. Okay, so we are ultimately aiming at that experience of self-forgetfulness, egolessness. Okay, that's the experience of ultimate experience. That's what I understand as spiritual experience. For a true spiritual person, there is no ego. He or she is completely devoid of ego. There is an experience of self-forgetfulness. Some musicians, you would have noticed, some musicians when they sing, they forget what is happening around. What is this marga, path to cover? What is that path? The path which is created by Maya. So you have to actually cross that Maya, cross the world. As Krishna says, Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, this world is about, or Vedas talk about, a world which is created by the three gunas. Okay, you have to actually go beyond it. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. So you have to be Nistraigunya. You have to go beyond the world. And this beyond the world is what I said, the world of silence. The world of ultimate silence, absolute silence. Absolute silence means, there will be a lot of noises, there will be a lot of voices. That's fine, but that won't affect the liberated. Like even Bhagavad Gita talks about the ocean. The ocean, there is a beautiful image of ocean. Water from various sources, through lakes and rivers and through rain, approach the ocean. But ocean remains unaffected, unaltered. The mind of a Sthita Prajna is like that ocean. Okay, Sthidadi Muniruchade. That state of a Sthita Prajna. That's your objective. You find yourself here as a Jiva, and there is the Paramatma, the Jivatma and the Paramatma, the subject and the object. And the Jivatma is nothing but a creation of Maya. Jivatma is part of this world. We are all part of this world. We have a social status. We have names. We are known through our names. Every one of us are known through our names. Nama Rupa, as Buddha says. The 5 skandhas, according to Buddhism, by means of which the world is created. And Buddha also says that this is manokalpidam. This is created by the mind. So the mind actually creates the world. And mind also creates, or rather the world creates, or rather the Maya. Nearest translation for Maya, I've seen people like Dasgupta using the term transcendental illusion. I don't know to what extent that might be a correct word, Maya. The definition given by Shankara is, it is Sat Asat Vilakshana. Sat means it is true. Yes, it is true because I experience it. Asat, does it have any essence? No, it doesn't have any essence because it changes. So something which possesses no fixed nature, something which keeps on changing its essence, something which keeps on changing its real nature, we cannot depend on that object. That is vilakshana. It doesn't have any lakshanas. Lakshana means definition. In order to define an object, we must capture its essential features. The world has no essential features. The world keeps on changing. The beautiful flower today it's so beautiful flower. After 1 week, you come and see what will happen to this beauty. It changes. So this is the world. So you cannot define the world because you can never capture the essence of the world because it lacks any essence. Or rather, its essence is something which you cannot capture with your mind because the mind essentially works through categories. So I was talking about the Jiva. In Mandukya Upanishad, is part of the Atharva Veda. Shankara's guru and his guru, Gaudapada Acharya, writes a very important work, Karika, Gaudapada Karika on Mandukya Karika. One of the fundamental textbooks of Advaita Vedanta, even today, where he introduces Ajadivada, which is the predecessor of Shankara's Mayavada. He doesn't talk about Maya. Shankara talks about Maya. So when it comes to Shankara, it becomes Mayavada. It basically talks about, that's one book in Indian tradition which analyzes, which gives us a beautiful phenomenological analysis of the jiva, the human self, by analyzing the different stages of human existence. The first stage is Jagrat, then Swapna, the third stage is Sushupti, and then it talks about, because it says that, Omityedaksharamidam sarvam tasya ubavakhyanam bhudam bhavat bhavishyadidi sarvam ongarameva yachanyadid. It takes us to the Trigaladidam. Because in the Om refer to past, present and future. That is Aksharam. And it necessarily suggests the Trigaladidam. Past, present and future is part of time, but the term Om also suggests, or rather it becomes, it gains its meaning by suggesting the possibility of a Trigaladidam. That's Aksharam. That's why it is called Aksharam, and that is Brahman. So Om actually begins with the three dimensions of time, where the Jivatma is situated, where our categories perform, and Paramatma is beyond that, Trigaladidam. So the Mandukya Upanishad actually talks about the Jivan. It says that every Jiva, every individual, all of us are conditioned by 7 Karyobhadis, causal conditions. Deha, which means body. Indriya, you understand what these terms, because they are all basic Sanskrit terms. Deha, Indriya, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta and Prana. These are the 7 conditions. So all of us have body. Yes, we have bodies. We have different bodies, okay, and different complexion, okay, black, white, yellow, brown, all kinds of things, which are fundamentally meaningless. They have no sense at the ultimate level. Color, because color is a categorization of mind. It's our creation. We have created it. It's our Maya, it's our ignorance that has created this color differences and all. Then you have, the Indriya, sense organs, by means of which you understand the world. The world is understood in terms of 5 sense organs, 5 sensations, like smell. When you enter this room, there is this beautiful fragrance of different flowers and this sandal stick and all that. Okay, that's because of the nose tells you that, but we have only 5. Suppose there is a creature with 6 sense organs or 7 sense organs. For that creature, the world will be a very different world. And our visual field is limited, all of us know, to a certain range. Another creature with a larger visual field will see this world in a very different way, something which we don't see. Okay, because a colorblind person will never have access to the visual field as we have. So naturally, a better creature, someone who is qualitatively better than us, will have a better access to this world, understanding about. So understanding is limited to categories, to the mind. So the mind creates the world. So Indriya, the third one is Buddhi. Buddhi is intellect. Intellect is the faculty of the mind which enables us to discriminate. That is Viveka. That gives us, not the ultimate Viveka, but the basic Viveka. We know that we know that the fire is hot. We will not, and also we know that something is good, something is bad for us, and all that. So Buddhi, Manas, Ahankara. That's the central point. Ahankara is the sense of ego. Because when you and I know something, we know it as we are knowing. We are also conscious of the fact that we are knowing. See this birds. We hear it, and also implicitly we know that we are hearing it. It's called self-consciousness. Animals are only conscious. They just know the world. And they just know the world, but we also know that we know the world. We are also conscious of the fact that we are conscious. This is self-consciousness, and that's ego. So ego is part of this self, okay, something which creates us. Now, you have ahankara, chitta, as Patanjali Maharshi starts his work, yoga, chitta vritti, nirodha. The aim of yoga is the cessation of the modification of chitta, because it's a modification of chitta that gives you the picture of the world. So everything related to the world is given by the 7 karyobhadis. And finally, prana, the energy that flows in your body. So these are the 7 conditions. So jiva is to be understood in the Jagrat state. We are all awakened now. We all have conditioned by these 7 factors. And when we go to the next stage, Swapna, the body and sense organs are absent. They are only dormantly present. They are not actively present. But ego is still there, because when I dream, it is my dream. I'm aware of that. If I'm there in the dream, if I see that some danger is going to happen to me in my dream, then I'm scared. So there is a sense of me in my dream also. That is not absent. Only the body and the sense organs are absent in dream. So we don't see a world which is given to us by the sense organs and the body. Okay, so the 5 conditions are there still. And now we go to the Sushupti, the 3rd stage, where all the 6 are absent except prana, which is a temporary bliss for human beings. You know, we had a nice sleep, a dreamless sleep, which is a beautiful experience. And we can, after waking from the sleep, we know that we have had a good sleep. So that is the final stage. Sorry, the 3rd stage. Vedanta also talks about, or Upanishad also mentioned about the last stage, which is called the Turiya state, the 4th state, which is the state of jnana, where there is no world, where there is no maya, where there is no mithya, but the last stage. Okay, now it is about this stage Shankara talks. Mada nasti, pida nasti. He's so, he's a great psychologist as well. He starts with Mada, because every person will have his or her mother so dear in their heart. And he says that Mada nasti, pida nasti, nasti bandhu sahodara, artham nasti, griham nasti, tasmat jagrada. Because all these are, your fundamental sense of ego begins with your mother and your father, then your bandhu and sahodara, your relatives and your siblings. So everything is to be overcome. They are all part of this world. They are all conditioned. They are all the conditions created by the categories. So you have to go beyond that. And that is why tasmat jagrada, janma dukkam. Here it starts with Mada nasti. And the next stanza starts with Janma dukkam, Jara dukkam. So birth and death. Jaya dukkam, Puna. Jaya stands for family. Okay, your family life. And your family is nothing but a microcosm of your social life. So your social and political life. Everything is included in that. So Janma dukkam, Jara dukkam, Jaya dukkam, Puna. Again and again. Because we are in the samsara chakra. Samsara sagaram dukkham. So this entire ocean of birth and death, continuous birth and death, the cycle of existence is, the essence of it is dukkham, suffering. Tasmat jagrada. So basically, a kind of bracketing, in phenomenology we call it the phenomenological bracketing of the world, the maya, the jagat, which is being proclaimed as mithya in the beginning. Tasmat jagrada. So focus on the self. So we are coming to the self, and that is where Poonthanam's Krishna comes into picture. Okay, and Krishna, as I already mentioned, takes us to this knowledge of the self, the ultimate self, but attracts us to that world, helps us to cross the ocean, the samsara chakra, and takes us to there. Basically helps us to break the fetters of the 7 karyobadis, which I have already mentioned. Everything that binds us to this world disappears. That's the kind of an experience. So Krishna, according to Poonthanam, is that experience that takes us beyond the world, beyond the samsara. And then he says, what happens? What the kind of an experience it is? He says here, Sakti Gudada Namangalepporum, Bhakti Pundu Jabikkanam Nammude, Siddhikalam Kayuvolam Evannam, Shraddhayode Vasikkenam Everum. Again, Sajjanangale Kanunna Nerathu Lejja Kudade Veenu Namikkanam, which is the most difficult thing. When you come across good people or great minds, Lejja Gudade, Lejja means without any shame, Veenu Namikkanam, you should surrender yourself. Surrendering not your body. Body surrender, everyone can do. Okay, but what is expected is not to surrender your body, but your mind, your ego, your ahankara. Along with ahankara, everything goes. The sense of ego, if the sense of ego goes, then what remains then? If the sense of ego goes, the subject, we begin with the subject and object. If you take away the sense of ego, what remains? Then only the Paramatma remains. So only Krishna remains. There is a great writer in Malayalam, Vakya Muhammad Bashir. You have heard, no? Bashir had a beautiful story in which he says that Niyam Jnanam enna Yathartyathil Nee Matram Bakiyagullu. In a reality with you and I, now only you are going to be there, not me. This is an Advaitic experience. Okay, he comes from the Sufi tradition. Basically, these are diverse traditions which converges into the same ocean of spirituality in India. Okay, Bhakti dan Lejja Kudade Veenu Namikkanam. Bhakti dannil Mulgi Chamanyudan Mattane Pole Nittam Kudikkanam. So real bhakti is not the externalities of bhakti, where people go and bow themselves and all that. It has nothing to do with your body. It has to do with your mind. It has to do with your ego. And where you completely forget about yourself. That is what I said, self-forgetfulness about your body. In India, we have a concept of Digambara. Shiva, for example, the concept of Shiva is Digambara. There is one of the paryayas of Shiva is that he is Digambara, because Ambara is what? Ambara is meant for covering the body. And the purpose of your cloth is to disguise your body. Why do you want to disguise your body? Because you think that there is something to be ashamed of in your body. Or rather, you are a social being. So once you transcend these two, your sociality of your existence and your ego, Ambaram becomes irrelevant. You can transcend that. Not literally. It doesn't mean that you have to literally throw away your clothes and all. That also people do in India. But that's not necessary. It's basically you have transcended the Dehabhimana. Abhimana about the body. So you go beyond that. Okay. So Mattane Pole Nrittam Kudikkanam. You transcend to a stage of ecstasy and you start dancing. Your movement becomes so rhythmatic because you hear only the music of the Lord. Only the music of the Lord. This is the essence of Jnanapana, because it ultimately talks about the egolessness. And it's here where, I started out with the traditions, the diversity in our tradition, the different ways in which our traditions have approached different traditions have approached the ultimate experience of ultimate reality. And I believe that, most of Indian traditions fundamentally aim at this experience of egolessness, which is the center of our spiritual experience. The egolessness is the center of our spiritual experience. Shankara, Ramanuja, all traditions in India do that. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, everyone does it. So, in all this experience of transcendence, you have a transcendent, the experience of the body, the experience of the ego, the self-forgetfulness. Poonthanam is one person who is acclaimed for his absolute unconditional devotion to Krishna. He is a poet who belongs to the very crucial phase of Kerala's history, or rather the history of Malayalam as a language and literature, because he was a contemporary of Eഴുത്തച്ഛൻ, who is hailed as the father of Malayalam language, not because there was no Malayalam before him, but because these people, actually Eഴുത്തച്ഛൻ initiated a new philosophical direction. See, that is the greatness of Poonthanam. Such great poet like Eഴുത്തച്ഛൻ was his contemporary. And it is very difficult to really make your voice heard by others. It is unthinkable to not mention him when we talk about the initial phase of Kerala's literature. Okay, so that is important because he is one poet who probably had realized the spiritual heights in his life, unlike many others. Everyone else is limited to the world of categories, but here there is a person who has really transcended that. So I will conclude with these words. I began with the diversity of the tradition and also the world, the talk and mauna. And here I would say the ultimate experience of bhakti consists in the experiencing of silence, perfect silence, because you have nothing to say, because there is no thing other than you, other than the Bhagavan. Okay, ultimate Advaitic Vedantic experience. Thank you.